Today we are discussing tools for mood and mental health. These are extremely important topics for people to implement, regardless of age. And the reason is that we are currently in a worldwide mental health crisis. To improve our mood and mental health consistently over time, I've distilled out what I refer to as the 6 major pillars of health, both mental health and physical health, and those are. So, I'm going to go into a few of the key bullet points about each of the 6 pillars, or what I also refer to as the Big 6 of self-care and mental health. Under the heading of sleep, it's safe to say that most people need between 6 to 8 hours of sleep per night. Some people can get away with 5. Some people need as much as 9 or 10. Certainly, growing kids, babies, teenagers, and those that are suffering from some sort of illness are going to need more, as much as 9, 10, maybe even 12 hours of sleep per night. However, most people do well to get somewhere between 6 and 8 hours of sleep per night. You're just going to have to experiment and figure out what's best for you. Now, one thing I heard recently, so I can't claim this as an original idea, but that I think is a really good way to think about sleep, is that sleep, much like physical fitness, is something that we have to constantly be working on. I do believe that we should strive to get enough quality sleep as many of the nights of our life as possible. And if you can't do that, hopefully it's for good reasons. But of course, things happen in life. We should all strive to get the best quality sleep that we can, and as much of it most nights of our lives. So it's important to look at sleep as a process that you're going to be working on for the rest of your life. The other thing that's not often discussed, and I really haven't talked about terribly much on this podcast, is the importance of having a fairly consistent sleep routine. I realize that not everybody can get to sleep at the exact same time each night and wake up at the exact same time each morning. And frankly, that's not practical. I certainly don't do that. However, what we know from the circadian health literature is that everybody should strive. Again, that word strive, nobody's perfect, but strive to get to sleep at more or less the same time each night and wake up at more or less the same time each morning. This turns out to be really important for regulating mood and mental health, and indeed, for improving your overall levels of sleep, getting the optimal amounts of slow-wave sleep, aka deep sleep, and rapid eye movement sleep. What we know is that trying to wake up at more or less the same time each morning, plus or minus 1 hour, is really going to help you anchor your overall sleep schedule. It's also going to help lead to predictability of your overall levels of energy, mood, and focus throughout the day. The second pillar in that Big 6 is light. I used to refer to this as sunlight. Try to view sunlight, that is, with your eyes, as early as possible after waking. Whenever I say that, the most common question I get is, what do I do if I wake up before the sun comes out? Well, unless you have superpowers that I'm not aware of, you can't make the sun come out any earlier. So, just flip on artificial lights as needed until the sun comes out. Then get outside, face east in the morning, and take off those sunglasses. It's perfectly safe to look at low solar angle sunlight without sunglasses. Definitely blink to protect your eyes as needed. This has myriad positive effects on mood, focus, alertness, and nighttime sleep. You want to do this for about 10 minutes on non-overcast days, and as long as 20 or 30 minutes on overcast days. That highlights the second most common question I get, which is, what do I do if there's no sun where I live? I live in an area where there's no sunlight. If you live on planet Earth, there's always sunlight. There might not be very much of it. It might be very overcast where you live. It might seem very dark. But trust me, there's far more photons, light energy, coming through that cloud cover, even in the darkest mornings of winter. The third pillar is movement. And when I say movement, I mean exercise. As you all know, we should all strive to get anywhere from 180 to 220 minutes of Zone 2 cardio per week. That's movement that allows you to hold a conversation, but were you to do it more intensely, or even a bit more intensely, you wouldn't be able to hold that conversation. In addition, we should do some VO2 max work. We should get our heart rate very high at least once a week doing some sort of movement that's safe for us. That could be running, cycling, swimming, Pilates, or whatever it is for you. Getting your heart rate way up is important, and doing that at least once a week is beneficial. Daily movement, either cardiovascular training or resistance training, is also important. It is very clear that we need both. Maybe not on the same days. In fact, I split them into separate days. Resistance training should be done for anywhere from 6 to 10 sets per muscle group, either close to or to failure. This can be with weights, bands, or machines. Now, the fourth pillar is nutrition. Nutrition is a big topic. It's also a very barbed wire topic. Everybody needs to consume sufficient amounts, but not excess amounts, of quality calories per day. You may do that through intermittent fasting. You may do that through a more traditional meal schedule. But everybody needs to do that because your body and brain, and indeed the parts of your body and brain that translate to mood and mental health, require macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, as well as micronutrients. The key takeaway with nutrition is to make it quality nutrition. That means getting most of your food sources from either non-processed or minimally processed foods. The fifth pillar in the Big Six is social connection. Let's be very brief and specific about this. We all need to strive to limit the number of social interactions that tax or vex us, that cause us stress. We are a species that is constantly interacting with other nervous systems, both other humans and non-human species, such as dogs, cats, horses, and other animals. We need to think about our nervous system as being regulated both from the inside, through our own actions, choices, and thoughts, and through interactions with other nervous systems. While we don't always have complete control over which social or work interactions we engage in, we should strive to understand whether certain social interactions are net positive, neutral, or taxing. Certain interactions with certain people or groups of people simply make us feel stressed. They lead to negative emotions and often elevated levels of autonomic arousal that leave us ruminating and having challenges with sleep. We should strive to limit those interactions to the extent that we can. The sixth pillar in the Big Six is stress control. The reason it's included is that stress is going to happen. Life is filled with stressors. I'm not here to tell you that stress is good for you. I'm not here to tell you that stress is bad for you. What I am going to tell you is that it is extremely important that we all have readily accessible stress management tools that work the first time and every time. These tools fall into two categories. The first category is real-time tools. Tools that you can use to reduce your level of stress in real time. The best way that I'm aware of, grounded in excellent physiology and neuroscience, to reduce stress in real time is the so-called physiological sigh. As many of you know, the physiological sigh is very simple and straightforward. Anyone can do it. You simply do a big inhale through your nose, trying to maximize the inflation of your lungs. Then, before you exhale, sneak in another brief inhalation, even if it's just a tiny micro-inhalation, to maximally inflate the lungs. Then you're going to do a long, extended exhale through the mouth. Typically just one physiological sigh, although sometimes it requires 2 or 3, is effective in bringing down one's level of stress significantly enough that you don't need to do it again. It's a very safe and very effective way to calm down and reduce your levels of stress in real time, whether before public speaking or in whatever circumstance you feel you need to calm down. So it's like this.